Senator Hope Uzodinma has now governed the state for more than 100 days. Coming in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, it's been a tough acid test for the former lawmaker, the former senator. The state task force on the fight against COVID-19 declared that the state, which had 7 cases of the novel virus, has now been completely free. And for more on this, I've now been joined by the Governor of Imo State, Senator Hope Uzodinma, via WebEx from the Imo State capital in Owerri. Very warm welcome to the Arise interview, Your Excellency. You want to quickly tell us, how has it been in the past 100 days governing a state like Imo? Your Excellency, did you get my question? I said, has been the experience away from lawmaking that you were for some years, and now as governor, the chief executive of Imo State, has governance been to you? What new experiences are you imbued with?
Thank you so much. It's been as interesting as also very challenging. And because also some of us have little knowledge of what governance is all about. And I tried to prepare myself before coming into this. I'm struggling by the grace of God to cope with the challenges of being an executive arm of government administration.
An enormous task, particularly trying to beat or excel above the feat of the late Dr. Sam Mbakwe, the father of modern Imo State. What are your thoughts here?
Great Mbakwe, popularly known as Sam, was a man of vision, the man who set the pace. Along the line, Imo people witnessed a lot of traffic jam that didn't allow the vision a free traffic flow. But by the grace of God, I have reconnected Imo State back to that track. We will improve on his performance by the grace of God.
To the benefit of Imolites. But you're dressed, I mean, you're the commander-in-chief of the COVID-19 force in Imo State, and I can see that you're putting on the vest. And you've had 7 cases, and Imo is said to be all free now. Is that the situation?
Yeah, that is the situation. That is the situation.
What kind of measures did His Excellency put in place to mitigate against this? We've heard of situations where truckloads of what's apparently supposed to be goods are used for human cargoes from one part of the country into your state. How are you mitigating the whole COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, if you recall, Imo is one of the states that witnessed the presence of COVID-19 lately. We started by taking preemptive measures. We tried to ensure that our early preparation will count. So we sensitized our people early enough. We introduced measures early enough. And at the end of the day, within this period, we closed our borders to unapproved traffic. And at the end of the day, our people became aware and they complied with most of the measures we put in place. That probably is responsible for the low presence of coronavirus in Imo State, and also the consciousness of our people in dealing with this monster. So I think that I will thank God Almighty, one, for making it possible for our people to embrace the fight against coronavirus, for our people to queue behind the guidelines given to us by NCDC. My thanks goes to NCDC and WHO for all their support and the various training programs they carried out in Imo State, and also the lectures given to the health workers here in Imo State. Particularly, this is stayed over a month state, training health workers, great sensitization, creating the awareness, and also letting our people know the risk associated with any carelessness. To the glory of God, our people follow. And today the result is that there is almost absence of coronavirus in Imo State.
That does not presupposes that if you said Imo State is being well prepared for it, taking the protocol measures put in place and its adherent, how about your isolation centers and capacity? How many do you have besides the one in Owerri, the state's capital, and how many bed capacity?
Well, in Owerri Federal Medical Center, we have an isolation center and a treatment center. Inside Owerri, Olu Road, we have an isolation center and a treatment center. In Imo State University Teaching Hospital, or Olu, which is outside Owerri, we have a 100-bed capacity isolation center and a treatment center, courtesy of Access Bank and the corporate COVID-19 crew. In Mbise, outside Owerri, we have Mbise General Hospital now as an isolation and treatment center. In Okigwe General Hospital is also an isolation and treatment center. So in totality, we have altogether 5 isolation centers and an emergency center at Umuguma General Hospital. So we are prepared. We don't pray that this thing should come in here, but should it come in, we are prepared to tackle whatever it will take to deal with this thing. You must have heard that in the 27 local government area of Imo State, we have health workers trained, taking this surveillance program up to the community level. We have procured 30 ambulances. Every local government has an ambulance vehicle for evacuation and training programs. We have an emergency call center, also of Nigerian Communication Commission, that are 24 hours working, taking calls if there is any information. Now we have trained and sensitized our people so much that if there is anybody coming into Imo State, even indigenous coming into Imo State without approval from the gateway, the traditional rulers, the town unions have been prepared to raise the alarm. And once the alarm is raised, we go in, take the person, and he will be isolated for the mandatory period approved by NCDC.
Because of the general awareness and the dissemination of information by your government, that's why you didn't lock down Imo State, but rather shut the borders for non-essential vehicular movements and human traffic.
Yeah, we did. If you recall, at the beginning of this thing, we shut down Imo State completely for over 2 weeks. And not only that, the thing was translating almost our economy. Our people responded in keeping to the measures put in place to curtail or manage the eventual entry of coronavirus into Imo State. So having achieved that, what we now did was to close the borders completely, unless to those on essential services, which is either the medical health workers, the food workers, food supplies, petroleum and oil industry workers, those people that have approved clearance to come into Imo State are the only people we allow. So having done that, we now relaxed partial traffic within the city to enable essential services, food markets to operate, then the skeletal operation of the worship centers, but observing all the measures, social distance, sanitizing and washing of their hands, and ensuring that the face mask. We enacted a law that made wearing of face mask mandatory to all citizens in Imo State. Sanitizing your hand mandatory, washing of your hands mandatory with soap. making sure it's right. Social distancing, mandatory. So the law is also is already in place, and we also created a monitoring and compliance task force going around to ensure that people are keeping to these rules. I think with that, at least our economy can bring some kind of oxygen to ensure that the place does not go inanimate.
Your Excellency, in just 1 minute before we take a short break, some of your governor colleagues have been cutting by almost 50% the salaries and allowances of political appointees because of the economic downturn that the nation and indeed the states are beginning to face. Are you going to implement such measure in Imo State?
So far, there is no reason for me to do that. And because also you will agree with me that the case is not as severe in Imo State as it is in some states. So there are these peculiarities. What I have been preoccupied with since the beginning of my government is putting in place a salary payroll system that is devoid of fraud to ensure that whatever we have gets to the real workers instead of what I met on ground where people were manipulating salary payrolls, people were being fraudulent with payment of salaries and pension allowances. So if I'm able to tidy up that system, I think we can pay our salary, and God has been so kind that we don't have any reason to go outside our purse for now to look for money. The situation becomes that I'll consult with those involved, and then we will come out of it somehow.
Your Excellency, when you assumed office, you asked contractors who were handling various projects in Imo State awarded by the previous, your predecessor. Are the contractors back to site, and what is the state of the infrastructural development of Imo State?
Thank you very much. Like you just said, when I assumed office being also a member coming from the political class. I understood very clearly that the government is the continue. Therefore, previous commitments and engagements done by the predecessor must continue in keeping with the rule of law, the contractual obligations. So I didn't pretend about that. I directed the contractors to continue, particularly given that most of those contractors have been paid 15% advance payment and they mobilized to site. Though some of them have not mobilized before my assumption of office. Surprisingly, some of these contractors disappeared from site. I've sent a series of letters warning and appealing that they should get back to work, especially those engaged with the construction of critical roads to help with the flooding situation in Owerri metropolis. Some of them that were adamant didn't waste time in replacing them with brand new contractors who also have been able to live up to our expectations. But I'm still pleading. Times without number, I've pleaded that these contractors should go and continue because of the government money that they collected as advance payments. And most of them have not gone to site. By the end of this month, anybody that is not seen site working, do our best to determine such contracts, then embark on reprocurement, in which case we will now demand from the various banks that issued the advance payment guarantee to return government money back to government. So I think that in good faith, I acted, believing that commitments of government should be respected. We need to, there is need for reciprocity, there is need for it to be reciprocated so that we will come out of this position. So now that they have not done, by the end of the month, during my last broadcast, I also publicly appealed to the contractors go back to site. Some of them are claiming that the money spent to them did not get to them completely. The evidence abound that government ministries, government records, that these monies were paid directly to the contractors. Whatever they have done, or however they have diverted those monies, they are still answerable according to contract. So at the end of the month, those contractors who have refused to continue the work or who have not been able to perform in line with the various clauses and provisions of the contract, requesting them to refund monies paid to government, paid to them by government.
All right, Your Excellency, you're indeed very magnanimous, which of course belies the negative or wrong conception, that seems to trail you for giving such grace to those contractors in your state. But tell us, how are you handling the issue of Almajiris being ferried into Imo State? Have you returned them back, or you're being a good citizen to, debrief them and make them settle down there? Your Excellency?
Well, since the beginning of this experience of COVID-19, I've presided over all meetings, important meetings. I have gotten reports from all the various committees and task forces set up by the government. I have not seen anywhere in any of the reports, including reports from the borders, that drugs came in with Almajiris. Chris, what I have seen is this deliberate campaign of calumny by those bad heads who have refused to see anything good coming from government, probably because they are not the ones occupying this position. They just embarked on deliberate campaign of calumny, blackmailing and trying to incite our people into going to do things that are reasonable. I have not seen any Almajiri. My borders are closed. I have a joint task force made up of the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Police, the Civil Defense, the Air Force and the Navy, and the DSS. And I have tents. I have also CCTV installed in all the 12 borders of Imo State. I monitor from my office. I monitor traffic. I see all the activities happening in all these borders. There are truck coming into Imo State with Almajiri. I'm only praying that God will help our people to know when enemies are at war, or when people are trying to instigate our people to make mistakes. But under my watch, I can assure you, I'm the governor of Imo State. I know the job of the government, to protect the interests of my people. Make sure my people are not vulnerable. I will not allow any illegal influence. However, believe in one united Nigeria, that where all of us must be our brother's keeper. When the need arises, that there is one problem or the other in other states, and that now Nigerian citizens must become refugees, we will discuss that. But for today, there is no such situation in Imo State.
Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts about reopening of churches and mosques in your neighboring states to you there, Abia State? They are doing that and the rest. Is your government too going to open churches and mosques considering the protocol and measures put in place by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19? Is your government thinking along that line?
Yeah, I discussed with the Presidential Task Force of COVID-19. I sent the status report as it has to do with Imo State. I consulted with my NCDC, and I met with the leadership of the church. Our people predominantly are Christians, and there is nothing as important to them as their faith. What I did was I engaged the leadership of the church. Started by worshiping through the televisions the social media. Then after that, having relaxed partially traffic within the state, having blocked the borders from any entry by anybody from outside the state, we agreed that skeletal worship should be done in our churches, not more than 50 persons, observing social distances, providing wash hand basins and soaps, providing sanitizers, then wearing face masks. And this is the protocol that has been established and approved by both WHO and NCDC. And we have done that for 2 Sundays running now. And we monitored this, and the compliance level was up to 97%. So we are not at any risk. We didn't do that without getting the necessary approvals from the relevant agencies.
Excellency, I wish there was time enough. I wanted to ask you more questions, but unfortunately, that's all we can take from you. Senator Hope Uzodinma, the Executive Governor of Imo State. We've been speaking with him via WebEx in the Imo State capital, Owerri. Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow. And from me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thanks for watching.